Welcome to the channel, everyone. We're so glad you're here to dive into another incredible story with us today. Make sure to leave a comment below and let us know where you're tuning in from. We love hearing from viewers all over. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you won't miss the next unforgettable story coming your way tomorrow. Trust me, you won't want to miss it. Stay tuned, and let's get started with today's tale. This girl took down the richest, most feared bully. Watch how. Raven Tate wasn't thinking about drama as she walked through the hallway of Sterling Academy. It was just another busy morning for her. She had AP Calculus in 5 minutes and a quiz waiting for her. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans. As she turned the corner, she saw him standing there. Grant Wheeler. He was like a living giant, towering at 6'2", with his blonde hair perfectly styled and his muscular frame that looked like it belonged to a football linebacker. He was a walking, talking stereotype of the privileged kid, arrogant, rich, and always used to getting his way. And right now, he was blocking her path, like some kind of villain in a bad movie. Raven had seen Grant plenty of times before, but today felt different. There was something in the way he stood there, leaning against the lockers with that smug smirk on his face that told her this wasn't going to be a normal encounter. Well, well, Grant sneered, his voice dripping with mockery. Looks like somebody got lost. You sure you're in the right place, Raven? He emphasized her name, making it sound like an insult, like she didn't belong at Sterling Academy. A few students slowed down their steps, a couple even stopped to watch, but no one dared to speak up. Sterling Academy had an unspoken rule when it came to Grant. If he picked on you, you stayed quiet, you didn't interfere. Everyone knew that. But Raven wasn't interested in playing by those rules anymore. She had spent months, even years, ignoring his cruel words, pretending they didn't sting. But not today. She tightened her grip on her backpack strap, narrowed her eyes, and exhaled sharply. Move, Grant. I don't have time for your garbage today. The words hit Grant like a challenge. His smirk widened. Oh, you think you can talk to me like that? He stepped closer, towering over her, his voice low and menacing. You don't belong here, Tate. This school isn't for people like you. He shoved her, expecting her to stumble, expecting her to back down. But Raven didn't move, not even a little. This was the moment everything changed. Raven's words hung in the air, challenging Grant, daring him to do something more. She didn't back down. Her heart raced, but her face remained calm. She was done being intimidated. Grant's smirk grew wider, like he knew something she didn't. He stepped closer, towering over her, his posture tense with anger. Oh, you think you can talk to me like that? He sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. You don't belong here, Tate. This school isn't for people like you. Without warning, he shoved her again, harder this time. The force of his push made Raven stumble, but she quickly regained her balance, barely reacting to the impact. The crowd of students around them gasped in shock, some of them even taking out their phones, already knowing this wasn't going to end the way Grant expected. This wasn't just a simple schoolyard push. No, this was something more. Raven could feel the tension in the air, the stares of the students around them. She knew what they expected. They expected her to back down, to run to a teacher, to cry. But that wasn't Raven's style. She wasn't about to let Grant think he could push her around. Not today. She tilted her head slightly, locking eyes with him. You really don't want to do this, she said, her voice eerily calm. Grant scoffed, laughing at her warning. Oh, really? What are you going to do? Run and tell a teacher, little girl? He stepped forward, his eyes cold with arrogance. This ain't your place. You're not in control here. Raven's eyes narrowed, her jaw tightening. She rolled her shoulders, shaking off the anger that bubbled beneath the surface. Grant was making a mistake. He didn't realize it yet, but he was about to find out. In one swift motion, Raven dropped her backpack to the ground, her feet steady on the floor. Grant didn't even have time to blink before she grabbed his arm. With a quick twist of her body, she flipped him over her shoulder. The sound of Grant's body hitting the floor echoed through the hallway, a sickening thud that silenced the crowd. Grant lay there, flat on his back, stunned and humiliated. His pride, the very thing he'd built up over years at Sterling Academy, was shattered in an instant. Raven stood over him, her posture casual, as though the whole thing had been no more than a brief inconvenience. Told you, she said coolly. adjusting her backpack before stepping over him like he was nothing more than a speed bump in her way. The crowd exploded into cheers, some high-fiving each other, others recording the moment on their phones. Grant groaned, rolling onto his side, his face beet red with rage. This wasn't over, not even close. By lunchtime, the entire school knew what had happened. Videos of Raven flipping Grant had already gone viral, circulating through every student group chat, Instagram, TikTok, and even Twitter. The title was everywhere. Rich kid gets destroyed by black girl at elite school. Raven couldn't believe how fast it spread, how quickly the school had become obsessed with the moment. Her life at Sterling Academy had just changed in ways she hadn't imagined. At first, people were just talking. A few students approached her, complimenting her on her quick reflexes and asking how she managed to flip Grant so easily. But then the attention started to grow. Kids who'd never even looked her way before started sitting with her at lunch, asking if she could teach them some self-defense moves. Raven didn't mind the attention, at least not at first. But as the day went on, something in the air shifted. The admiration was clear, but so was the fear. Grant Wheeler wasn't just some kid in their class. He was the guy everyone feared, the one who ruled Sterling Academy. He had built his reputation over years, bullying students, showing off his wealth, and making sure everyone knew that he was at the top of the social food chain. To see him, the king of the school, completely humiliated, was more than just a shock. It was a wake-up call. But while the students were laughing and celebrating, Grant was fuming. His anger was palpable, and it was clear he wasn't going to let this slide. Raven could feel it, even as she basked in her newfound fame. The way people whispered when she walked by, the glances Grant's group threw her way, they all seemed to know that something bigger was coming. By the next morning, it wasn't just the students who were talking about the video. It had spread like wildfire, making its way through social media platforms everywhere. The whole school was obsessed with the image of Grant, the guy who had once been untouchable, lying on his back in front of Raven. The more they talked about it, the more Grant's reputation shattered. But for Grant, this was more than just humiliation. It was an assault on everything he'd worked for. The fear, the respect, the power. And he wasn't going to let that slide. Not now, not ever. Raven had made a powerful enemy, and Grant Wheeler was already plotting his next move. He wasn't about to let a girl like Raven Tate ruin his legacy. By the next day, Raven could feel the tension in the air. The videos of Grant's defeat had spread like wildfire, and the entire school seemed to be buzzing with excitement over her victory. But while most of the students were impressed, some were starting to whisper in corners, glancing nervously at her as if waiting for the storm to hit. Raven wasn't oblivious to it. She noticed the way people stared at her with a mix of admiration and fear, and she couldn't shake the feeling that Grant's group wasn't done with her. It didn't take long for the inevitable to happen. The text came during lunch, an unknown number, an invitation to meet at the gym after school. No cameras. Let's settle this. Raven didn't have to think twice about who it was. Of course, it was Grant. And of course, he wanted a rematch. Raven wasn't scared. She had dealt with bullies her whole life, and Grant's attempt to regain control didn't faze her. But still, a part of her knew that something was off. Grant wasn't the type to back down easily, and he didn't take losing well. She quickly typed out a response, agreeing to meet him in the gym, but she couldn't ignore the slight twist in her stomach. This wasn't going to be a simple fight. No, this was personal. As the final bell rang, Raven made her way to the gym, her mind focused but alert. The gym was massive, its high ceilings and polished floors silent as she stepped inside. For a moment, it seemed empty, but as soon as the door slammed behind her, she knew she wasn't alone. Grant's voice echoed from the far side of the room. "Big mistake coming here, Tate." She turned, her eyes locking onto him. And this time, it wasn't just him standing there. Behind Grant, his 3 loyal goons, Mason, Tyler, and Hunter, towered like shadows, ready to back him up. The tension in the air thickened. 4 against 1. It wasn't fair, but Raven wasn't backing down. She crossed her arms, her gaze steady. "Wow," she said, her voice calm, almost mocking. "You really must be scared of me." Grant's face twisted with rage. "This isn't about being scared," he growled. "It's about respect." Raven couldn't help but roll her eyes. "No, it's about revenge." And just like that, the fight was on. The gym was eerily quiet, the air thick with anticipation. Raven stood tall, her arms crossed, eyes locked on Grant as he advanced toward her with a fire in his eyes. Behind him, his three loyal goons, Mason, Tyler, and Hunter, stood like a wall, ready to make sure she didn't walk out of this fight unscathed. But Raven wasn't intimidated. This wasn't her first fight, and it sure as hell wouldn't be her last. She had nothing to prove to them, but she knew she wasn't about to let Grant get away with his arrogance. Grant's smirk twisted into a snarl as he took a step forward, his voice low and dangerous. "You think you can walk all over me, Tate? You think this is over? You're going to regret this. You're going to learn your place." Raven felt the anger simmering beneath the surface, but she knew better than to let it control her. Instead, she let the calm take over, pushing away the tension that threatened to overtake her. "Is this really necessary, Grant?" she asked, her voice cool, calm, almost like she was bored by the whole thing. "It's 4 against 1. You must really be scared of me." Grant's eyes darkened as he lunged at her, throwing a wild punch. It was sloppy, uncontrolled, full of rage. Raven stepped to the side effortlessly, avoiding his attack. "Amateur," she muttered, her eyes never leaving his. Mason rushed at her next, but Raven was quicker. With one swift move, she ducked, sweeping his legs from under him. He collapsed to the floor with a heavy thud, groaning as he tried to push himself up. Tyler tried to grab her from behind, but Raven was already a step ahead. She drove an elbow into his ribs, hearing the satisfying crack as he stumbled back, gasping for air. Hunter hesitated for a moment, and that was his mistake. Raven spun around, her leg flying out to kick him square in the chest. He flew backward, crashing to the floor with a sickening thud. 3 down, 1 left. Grant, now enraged beyond reason, rushed at her, throwing punch after punch, but his anger only clouded his judgment. He was desperate. Raven was calm, composed. She dodged every swing, waiting for the right moment. When it came, she moved fast. One lightning-fast kick to his gut sent him staggering backward, gasping for air. In an instant, she grabbed his collar and slammed him into the gym floor, his back hitting the ground with a bone-jarring force. He groaned, stunned. Raven crouched over him, her face inches from his. "Don't ever touch me again," she said, her voice low, cold, and dangerous. Grant's pride lay shattered on the floor, his goons still lying unconscious around him. Raven stood up, adjusting her backpack like nothing had happened, her expression casual as she stepped over him, walking away as though he didn't even matter. By the next morning, Sterling Academy had a new queen. No one feared Grant Wheeler anymore. They feared Raven Tate. Whispers filled the halls, but they were different now. People weren't talking about what she had done. They were talking about what would happen if you ever crossed her. Grant had learned the hard way. Some people, like Raven, were just not meant to be messed with. Wow, what a wild ride. We just witnessed an unforgettable moment at Sterling Academy, didn't we? But now, we want to hear your thoughts. What did you think of Raven's incredible move? Do you think she handled the situation the right way, or was there a better way to deal with Grant and his gang? We'd love to know how you feel about what had happened and what might have been going through Raven's mind during that intense showdown. Also, let's talk about Grant. Do you think he learned his lesson, or do you think this is just the beginning of something bigger? How do you think the rest of the school will react to what went down? Was Raven's victory a turning point, or is Grant just going to come back even stronger? We're really curious about your opinions. Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let's get a conversation started. Your insights matter, and we love hearing from you all. Plus, don't forget to hit that like button if you're loving these powerful stories. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss tomorrow's story. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming next.